Ever since the dawn of League of Legends, there has been one question that has eluded players. Why is it, despite each server playing the exact same game on the exact same patch, does each server have its own unique meta and playstyle? You would think with enough time, and especially with how connected we are globally through the internet, that each server would eventually come to play the exact same way, whatever is the most effective strategy for winning games, and yet that's never happened. To this day, there's still key differences between each server's meta. Korean solo queue is known for its fast-paced, aggressive style. European solo queue is known for being slower than Korea but still aggressive with top-tier mechanics. And North American solo queue is known for, well, being a worse version of Europe. But in all seriousness, this has got us thinking just how much different is each server and what exactly do they have in common? Well, as we do here at SkillCapped, we set out to answer this question through research, analysis, and consulting with the top players. So first, let's establish a few facts as there's a lot of misinformation around this topic. To start, there's the population of active ranked players for each server. Let's take a look at the population in 2018. We can see both Korea and Europe West close to each other near 2 million active ranked players. North America is trailing with nearly half the population at 1.2 million. Hold on though, these stats are just from 2018. I'm sure the game's player base has grown a lot since then and NA has caught up. Oh boy, these stats are from 2020 and you can see the game has in fact grown a lot, but out of the 3 major regions, North America actually grew the least. And this fact is why it's typically agreed upon that, in order, the 3 best major servers are Korea, Europe West, and North America. The logic being, the more players, the tougher the competition, and that results in better players overall. And so you would think we could just wrap things up here, but it still doesn't answer a nagging question. If server size is so important, and Korea and EU West are similar in size, why are there clearly different metas in each server? For example, check this out. Let's say you were playing in Korea and your team destroyed the first tower. You would then have around a 73.6% chance of winning the game. Now play the same game in the exact same scenario, but in Europe West. Suddenly your chances of winning drops by 3%. In fact, North American servers have way more in common with Europe when it comes to your chances of winning after getting an early lead than with Korea, despite having half the player size. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everyone knows in Korea, when they fall behind, they will just AFK and open mid, and that's what's artificially inflating your chances of winning. But this isn't true. Korea actually has the lowest percentage of games with AFK players in them by a significant amount. Depending on what rank you're in, both Europe and North America beat Korea by a large margin in terms of AFKs in game. So here's the secret stat that puts it all together. Korea actually has the highest surrender rate of the 3 major regions. Basically, in Europe and North America, if the game's going bad and surrender votes go down, we have a tendency to vote no and just hold the game hostage. In Korea, they just move next. And this is reflective in the average game length. In games that include surrenders, the average game length is at least 2 minutes shorter in Korea. However, even without surrenders, in Korea the game length is still around 2 minutes shorter. So what does all this mean? Well, server side has a strong correlation to the average skill level and is why we'll be focusing our analysis on the 3 biggest regions, Korea, Europe West, and North America. However, server population isn't everything. Europe actually has more in common with North America than does Korea in terms of playstyle, despite being closer to Korea in server size. And that's exactly why we decided to make this guide. If we do an analysis on a top Korean or European player, we often see comments saying this strategy won't work on my server, and in some cases this can actually be true or at least be a legitimate concern. This is why in this video we'll be taking the rank 1 jungler from each major region and finding out what kind of strategies and tactics they have in common that let them climb the ranks so effectively. So let's introduce you to these junglers we'll be learning from. In Korea, the current rank 1 jungler is the pro player Junjia of Edward Gaming. In Europe, it's the pro player Razorg of Misfits Gaming. And in North America, it's the pro player Armeo of Team Liquid. When you put the op.gg profiles of these 3 junglers next to each other, something really interesting jumps out. They don't really play the same champions. In addition to this, if you compare their champions played from this entire season to just the last 30 days of active play, you also see a drastic shift in champion pools. For example, in North America, out of Armeo's top 7 champions played this season, he's really only actively playing Diana this past month, with him switching to a lot more Lee Sin, Viego, and Xin Zhao. In Europe West, we see the same thing with Razorg. He completely dropped Graves, Nidalee, Echo, and Kindred. Instead, we see him adding similar champions to his pool, such as Diana, Lee Sin, Viego, and Xin Zhao. In Korea, same thing. Junjia dropped Udyr, Lilia, and Nidalee, and in the past month, he's actively playing Viego, Diana, and Xin Zhao, same as the others. So what point am I getting at? Well, total season profiles are deceiving. The top players do in fact follow the meta and change what they're playing based on what's strong on the patch. However, people make the mistake of taking that too far and assume that the top players are all playing the exact same champions. We can see that's simply not the case. Instead, they select what fits their playstyle or preference from a pool of top tier champions on the patch. And that's the first thing the top players have in common from each region. They aren't always playing the most OP champions or even S tier champions. Instead, they typically play A tier champions or higher that fit their playstyle and don't play any lower than that. Essentially, the rule you'd want to follow is it's not always the most important to play what's strongest on the patch. However, it is important you aren't playing something too weak. Alright, now for what you've really been waiting for, let's jump into some actual gameplay. After combing through countless games from each of these junglers, we found 3 core tactics each of them used in nearly every single one of their games. The first concept that each rank 1 jungler has in common is how they balance ganking and farming in the early laning phase. We all know the importance of farming our camps as a jungler, but it's not realistic to just full clear over and over again and just try to gank while your camps are down, as you will simply be spending way too much time farming and not enough time impacting the map. Let's take a look at how the rank 1 Korean jungler Junjia tackles this problem. It's past 4 minutes into the game, and Diana's second rotation of camps are respawning. She kills her Gromp, and then her wolves. It's here we can see her raptors are going to respawn soon, and her Krugs will be shortly after. Most players would be thinking about farming efficiently and would head to their raptors, then their Krugs, and then look to gank after all their camps are down, especially this early in the game. However, take a look at the map. Our bot lane just shoved in a big wave and now has a roam timing off it. If we look mid, we can see both LeBlanc and Lucian are low in health and playing aggressive. We have a timing window where we'll have a number advantage. The enemy AD carry has to go bot lane to pick up that wave that crashed into the tower, or else they'll fall behind. By recognizing this opportunity, Diana is able to not only pick up 2 kills, but also steal the raptors after. Now let's jump into a replay of Europe's rank 1 jungler Razork. It's almost the exact same time in the game, shortly past 4 minutes, and he farms his Krugs, then his raptors. We can now see how his wolves are respawning and his Gromp will be shortly after. Again, most players wouldn't even think twice. They would farm these 2 camps and then look for a gank afterwards. Instead, Razork notices a big wave built up bot side. This signals that there's a possible dive opportunity when this wave crashes into the tower. He also knows that bot lane summoner spells are on cooldown from a fight earlier. These are 2 timing windows. We have a dive opportunity off this big wave that will eventually go away, as well as the enemy summoner spells that will also eventually be back up. He recognizes this opportunity and chooses to try to dive bot lane instead of farm his other jungle quadrant. And lastly, let's quickly take a look at the rank 1 North American jungler Armeo. Again, it's past 4 minutes, his second rotation of camps are up. He farms his Gromp, wolves, and then his raptors. Most players would then farm their Krugs and look for a gank after. Instead, he chooses to head mid for a gank. Why? Because the wave is pushed up the lane, leaving Lucian more vulnerable, and Rumble will be spiking level 6. Just like the others, he recognizes a timing window that can go away if he doesn't take advantage of it immediately. Now, there are 2 key lessons you should be drawing from these 3 clips. Firstly, is that it's okay to skip a camp if there's a play with a high percentage of working out somewhere on the map. Be active with your camera while you clear camps, don't just look for plays after you're done farming. However, it should be said, don't take that too far and skip camps in order to force plays. It's okay to full clear if there are no plays to be made on the map. Secondly, and this is a big one, take note of how each jungler fully cleared at least 1 quadrant before trying to make a play. This accomplishes 2 things. First, it syncs up the respawn timers of those camps in that quadrant. This makes your pathing far more efficient in the future. For example, if you were on the bottom side of the map and that quadrant's respawn timers were synced, you could farm your Gromp and Wolves, which are really close to each other while also looking for a play on the bottom side of the map as you farm. However, if your camps were desynced, and let's say your Gromp and Raptors were the only camps alive, then you're much less flexible. You'll kill your Gromp, then immediately have to decide whether to pivot to the top side to kill Raptors or commit to a play on the bottom side of the map after only farming 1 camp. Additionally, even if you do decide to continue farming, the Raptor camp is much further away, meaning you're spending more time moving to a location rather than farming, which lowers your overall gold per minute. To simplify this concept, instead of constantly trying to sync up your entire jungle by full clearing, realize that's not always realistic, and instead at least try to keep 1 quadrant's respawn timer synced up. This will keep you farming efficiently enough, while still being able to react to things on the map. Alright, now that you have a better understanding of balancing ganking and farming, let's move on to the second thing the rank 1 junglers have in common. They play the opposite side of the map. Let me show you what I mean by this in this clip of the rank 1 Korean jungler. He starts the game bot side at his blue buff. By paying attention to the side lanes, we see bot lane isn't leashing as they're in lane first, while top lane is missing, indicating he's leashing their jungler top side. So we now know that the jungler should be pathing away from each other. Diana then full clears towards the top side of the map, and then shortly after heads towards the scuttle. We know the enemy jungler pathed away from us, and so should be bot side heading towards the scuttle at the same time. Now, after killing the scuttle, let's take a look at our options. No one is in mid lane as they just traded kills. Top lane has a weak freeze in front of his tower. Our bot lane has their own weak freeze in front of our own tower. So with this information, what would you do in this scenario? Well, we know the enemy jungler started topside, and so there's no camps alive for us to steal. We also have no ganks available mid since no one is there, and the enemy top lane is relatively healthy with a safe freeze. Right now, we should be recalling and heading towards the bottom side of the map. Maybe we'll have a gank on the enemy bot lane if our bot maintains the freeze. If not, our camp should respawn soon enough that we can fall back on clearing them. This is why Diana begins to recall. However, she then cancels it. Why is this? Well, while she was recalling, the top laner started to fight and she saw Viego was getting low. If Fiora wins this fight or goes even in the trade, there's the potential for her to crash a wave and for Diana to dive the low health top laner. And I know what you're thinking, really? A tower dive before 4 minutes? That seems insanely risky, but it really isn't. This is because we know the enemy jungler is on the bottom side of the map, the opposite side of us. And when that's the case, you have to realize you can look for aggressive plays like these without the risk of being counter-ganked. A simpler way of understanding this is imagine all players are in their respective lanes. Then place each jungler on opposite sides of the map. you'll realize it's just a simple number advantage. Each team has one additional teammate on each side of the map. This means that any plays that do happen on that side are highly likely to favor the team with the jungler close by them. Now, in this game, Fjord just completely inted, essentially baiting Diana to cancel the recall, but things like this happen in solo queue. However, I just want to point out what happens on the opposite side of the map during this time. The enemy jungler also knows they're on opposite sides of the map, and so they're the ones who execute a successful dive. Now, jumping to Europe's rank 1 jungler, we see the same pattern. Razork is heading out of base and sees a couple things bot side. The enemy jungler is there, Renekton is there, who is currently the most fed member of the enemy team, and Dragon is alive. Instead of heading towards the bot side to take an even-numbered fight that he would probably lose due to being behind or not even be able to get there in time to defend the Dragon, he immediately knows to play the opposite side of the map and look for advantages there. He first looks for camps to steal in the enemy's jungle, and then is able to get a fight with the enemy top laner. Again, since we saw the jungler and his teammates bot side at Dragon, we know any fight that breaks out top side will be a number advantage for us. Suddenly, we realize he didn't just give up Dragon for free, he was able to take things on the opposite side of the map to help make up for it. And lastly, we see the same concept at play used by the rank 1 North American jungler. He's currently topside, Dragon is up bot side, and his bot lane is actually behind 2 kills and is weaker this game. The enemy taking Dragon is a serious threat right now, but instead of trying to head back bot side to contest the Dragon, which he would probably lose due to his bot lane being behind, he uses this time to look for plays on the top side of the map since he knows the enemy jungler can't be there right now. This is how he knows it's safe to look for this lane gank, as there's no chance of a counter gank from the enemy Evelynn. The key lesson you should be taken away from this is that when you know the enemy jungler is on the opposite side of the map, you should be looking to make more aggressive plays on the side you're currently on. This is because there's less risk, as there's no chance of the enemy jungler counter ganking you, while also guaranteeing you will have the number advantage for any plays that you do make. Alright, moving on to our third concept. This one is the most advanced of the 3, and it has to do with understanding that the direction you path changes once the laning phase starts to get to an end. Let me explain. Typically, in the early laning phase, let's say before the 10-minute mark, it's normal for most junglers to think of pathing as wanting to start on the opposite side you want to gank or influence. For example, if I wanted to gank bottom side, I can start top side and farm my way down towards that lane. This way I'm clearing camps efficiently as I head towards the location I want to influence. However, as it gets later into the laning phase, typically past 10 minutes, farming efficiently starts to become less important than making plays. No longer do you want to think about pathing in the traditional sense of left to right or right to left in a horizontal fashion. Instead, you want to think of your pathing as top to bottom or bottom to top in a vertical fashion. Let's jump into a replay of the rank 1 Korean jungler to show you what I mean. Notice how it's around the 10-minute mark. He chooses to do the standard horizontal pathing of right to left and then looks for a gank at the end of his path. Okay, everything looks normal. He then recalls and starts heading back on the map. Now, pay attention to the path he takes. He's essentially just walking in a vertical path straight to bot side and just picks up camps that are alive nearby. Then, once he makes the play bot and wins the fight, he doesn't make the mistake of thinking he should be going back into his own jungle and farm right to left horizontally. Since he won the team fight, he now has the number advantage. This allows him to continue pushing forward and transition into taking the enemy's jungle camps. Exact same pattern found in Europe's rank 1 jungler. It's around 14 minutes into the game, the laning phase is coming to an end, and Viego is leaving base. You can see how his entire jungle is going to be alive, however, he's no longer thinking about pathing horizontally. He's asking himself, what side of the map do I want to make a play or pressure? In this case, it's topside, so he paths vertically, taking camps along the way to be efficient. Then what does he do after he wins the fight? He doesn't make the mistake of trying to backtrack into his own jungle, he then looks for camps to take in the enemy's topside jungle. As soon as he recalls, you can see how he's immediately thinking of pathing vertically once again. He heads towards bot side to take a fight there, and then after winning it, is looking to steal camps in the enemy's jungle on the same side of the map that he fought on. Jump ahead a few minutes and you see the same thing. He's leaving base and paths in a vertical fashion to clear camps along the way to the location of the map that he wants to impact. And finally, let's take a look at the rank 1 NA jungler. It's 16 minutes into the game, the laning phase has ended, and he's leaving base. If we look at our camps, our Raptors and Gromp are alive. We now know during this phase of the game we want to be thinking of pathing vertically, so we'll have to decide whether to path top side or bot side. If we look top, we see our Nasus split pushing, never a good idea to group with a split pusher, especially in Nasus. If we look bot side, we see a close fight occurring with Tristana alive. So obviously we want to path bot side to help her out. Diana picks up the Gromp along the way to be efficient, and then hits bot side to pick up a kill. And what does she do after? Look to clear camps in the enemy's bot side jungle off this winning fight. So what's the lesson you want to take from this? Well, once the laning phase is starting to end or has ended, begin to think of pathing vertically. Ask yourself, what side of the map do you want to impact? Then pass towards that side immediately, farm your camps on that side along the way, and look to steal the enemy's camps after winning a fight. The reason we do this is that once the laning phase starts to end, players are doing a lot more grouping, and so you simply don't have the time to start on the opposite side you want to impact and slowly full clear where you want to be. By pathing vertically, you can actually end up farming just as efficient as if you pathed horizontally, since you can often steal the enemy's camps after winning a fight. Alright, we covered a lot in this video, so let's recap what we've learned. The first thing you learned is that in the early laning phase, it's normal to have to ignore camps to react to a valuable opportunity on the map. However, always try to at least clear one quadrant before you try to make a play if you can help it, as it will sync up their respawn timers and make for more efficient pathing in the long run. The second thing you learned was playing the opposite side of the map. When junglers are on opposite sides of each other, you want to look for aggressive plays as you have the guaranteed number advantage and can't be counter ganked. And lastly, once the laning phase ends, try to plan your pathing vertically instead of horizontally. You usually won't be able to keep up with the pace of the game if you try to continue the standard horizontal pathing. Instead, path vertically to get where you're needed faster, and then look to steal the enemy's jungle camps after you win the fight.
Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like if a gym membership guaranteed that you'll get ripped. Your gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses. No one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into ELO Hell 629 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $4.99 a month if you're serious about improving.
Alright, that's going to do it for this one. Let us know if you want us to continue this series with other roles, and if so, what role would you want us to do next? We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.